Are you unintentionally putting off candidates with your interview questions or losing out on great talent for your team? In this video, I am going to talk those red flag questions and the one that will ultimately put a stop to anyone being able to successfully prove themselves in an interview and may even make them just feel like they want to walk away. For those that haven't met me before, my name is Jenefer. I'm a HR consultant specialising in neurodiversity. I'm also the founder of Silk Helix, and we support businesses to create supportive and inclusive workplaces. So if that's the type of content you're into, do hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single video. But right now, I'm going to dive into the questions you really should not be asking when it comes to interviews. So you're probably going to be pretty shocked by the questions I'm going to tell you not to ask, because they are the questions that people have been asking for years. And it includes things like, tell me about a time where you've had to multitask. Tell me about how you work under pressure. Or what's your biggest weakness? These three questions are all awful and really problematic, particularly to somebody with ADHD. The problem with these types of questions is they require storytelling, and storytelling from a particular point of view. So employers, interviewers are looking for things like I rather than we. They want to know exactly which bit you did in the role, which means that you're asking somebody to think quickly of a suitable example and be able to tell that story in a way that demonstrates exactly what it is the interviewer is looking for, often really abstractly, in a way that individuals don't even know what the interviewer is looking for. I mean, what's your biggest weakness is a real pet hate question of mine, because it doesn't provide anything. I mean, what do you really want to know? I mean, for me, do you want to know that I can't sing? I mean, what relevance has that got to anything I do at work? I know that's not what you're looking for, but what are you likely to get from that question that really highlights any of the skills that you're actually looking for from somebody? When we're in an interview, we're selling ourselves. We're not there to share our weaknesses. And we've all been told by school careers officers about turning the question around to a positive. Oh, I'm a perfectionist. That's my biggest weakness. It's a meaningless question. It's just a waste of everybody's breath and time in an interview. And then things like working well under pressure. Somebody with ADHD, for example, probably does their best work under pressure, probably only really works well under pressure. So asking somebody for examples of when they've worked well under pressure, somebody with ADHD might not even see that. They might not just recognise that that's what they do. It's just what they need to thrive. So it's really important when we're looking at interview questions, we don't just pick up some random questions that we found on the internet or we've used for years, but we really look at the skills we're looking for and ask questions that relate to that. But there is one question, the worst question that you can possibly ask. And there's a whole range of people who are going to struggle to answer this, and it is going to get you the wrong people into your company. And that is, tell me why you are the best fit for this role. Employers love asking it. And perhaps if you've got sales roles, if you're advertising for salespeople and you really want people who can sell themselves or sell a product, maybe it's a question that can work, but in most cases, this type of question is answered well by really highly confident people. Research has shown that men do better answering these types of questions than women do, because they are more able to big themselves up, to tell people how good they are, and they have more confidence. Not all men, of course, and not all women, but that's what the research tells us. The other problem with this question is it asks us to be competitive without any context. So it's not uncommon for companies, when they're marketing products and services, to talk about why they're the best on the market, why they are better than their competitors. But they will have done competitor research to be able to do that. They will have context. They will be able to say, well, we do this as a company. We do it like this, in a different way to all the other companies. When you're asking an individual, they don't have that context. And the same is going to go for your salespeople, actually, and whether this question is even right for them, because there's no context. So again, even as a salesperson, you're going to know who your competitors are. Whereas in this question, you're asking people to be competitive without providing them any context as to who they're being competitive against. It's also going to be really harmful to people with certain types of values which could be beneficial to your business. So people, for example, who value honesty, who are maybe very literal in their thinking may find this question really difficult because it may not feel honest to be saying, I'm the best person for this role. That doesn't mean they're not the best person for the role. It might just not feel honest. I mean, literally somebody could be looking at this really literally in terms of the entire global population, of which I have not met and do not know all of them or anything about most of them. How can I say that I'm the best person for this role when there could be somebody out there who's better? Now, that is very literal thinking, and it's a real value of honesty, which can be beneficial and can be a real strength into workplace. But you're going to lose out on that type of person who's simply not going to be able to answer this question well. It's not likely to give you anything other than tell you somebody's got confidence and charisma, which may actually not be the best type of team player or the person that you really want within your business if you're trying to create things like psychological safety and environments where everybody can thrive. So what should we be doing to have inclusive interview practices, and why? Well, inclusive interview practices are really important because that means you are going to get the best people. There are people out there who are looking for jobs who cannot get through recruitment processes because the recruitment processes are a barrier in themselves, which means employers are complaining they cannot find the best staff. And the best staff are out there, but they can't get through the recruitment process because the recruitment process so often doesn't fit the job. So it's really important that we have inclusive processes. It benefits not just the candidates, but it benefits the employer. We should be asking questions that only relate to the skills and being really specific. For example, if you want to know about my problem-solving skills, don't ask me about a time I was in a difficult situation at work. For me personally, that doesn't work. I find that question really hard to answer because once I've gone through the problem and solved it, I find it really hard to still think of it as a difficult problem or challenge or situation, partly because of my own kind of self-talk around like, oh, it can't have been that hard, you were overdoing it, you managed it, and all of that. Anyway, when we ask vague questions like, tell me about a challenging situation or tell me about a time where you experienced a problem at work, it's really vague and it doesn't get us focusing. It doesn't focus the mind on what you really want, which is a problem solving. You want somebody who is able to see a problem and work out how they're going to solve it. So ask about problem solving. Don't ask about difficult times. Alongside getting the questions right, and the next one is making sure you share the questions in advance of the interview. Now, this shocks people when I say this. It's so different to what we've ever done before, but it's so important for inclusive interviews. We are not trying to test people. There is very few roles where testing knowledge is important, and in those situations, it would be reasonable to do a work test where you are testing particular knowledge. If I was employing a HR consultant, for example, I might give them a scenario equivalent to a client ringing us and giving us a scenario and ask them how they would answer that and deal with it on the phone. But questions about themselves, like when they've problem solved or how they multitask or these things that the skills we might need for the role, when we give out the questions in advance, we allow people to prepare. We allow people to think. We overcome that challenge of working memory, having to think through something really quickly, try and put it into a format of where I did it, not we did it. And you end up with something that's actually more realistic, better quality, gives you much more information about someone. And then you can build on that by asking more questions. Now, employers will say things like, well, somebody can just put the questions into ChatGPT and it will give them the answers. You're going to know that in an interview because when you ask follow-up questions, when you enter into discussion with somebody, they're not going to be able to follow that up and have those discussions. But you are going to get a much better quality answer from the person who's been able to think through in advance and relate it to what you're looking for. And particularly where you've shared good quality information about what you're looking for, what the job role involves, so that somebody can pick an example that fits what you're looking for and how this will work in this particular job role. Which does bring me on to using things like tests. So alongside interviews, or even instead of interviews, generally those are going to be alongside. Work tests are important, not psychometric, generic tests. They are not inclusive, but specific tests, which are, this is work you will be doing in the role. Can you show us how you would do that? Can you do that in this environment? Those kind of tests really important. They are going to show you the skills that somebody actually has. And of course, really crucially, check your bias. Things like eye contact, for example. Is it really important somebody has eye contact for the role? Are we really looking for somebody with confidence and charisma, or are we looking for somebody who's got particular skills and they can actually do this job? Awareness training is so important for this because it will raise your awareness to potential biases. And of course, we've all got biases. We know that. We know statistics tell us that we make decisions in the first sort of 6 seconds, I think it is, of meeting people. We know that all of these things, these are human nature. So it's really important that we check those, we understand, and that we have objective sort of lists of skills and things that we're looking for that we can measure against, and we're not measuring things that really shouldn't be being measured. And we find that interviews generally measure social skills, and that is neurotypical social skills, above anything else because of that decision making in the really early stages. And we know that that's harmful for those who are neurodivergent. So again, really important that you understand those biases, you check your biases, and that you've got a system in place that enables everyone to thrive and overcome some of those challenges. If you're ready to transform your hiring process and want to work with me, do get in touch. There's details in the description below and on screen now to have a chat about this. I would love also to hear your questions and thoughts. Do stick them in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, and I'll be back next week with another video.